Okay, let's jump right in. Something huge is happening in the race to build the future of AI. And it's not just happening in shiny corporate HQs. The real battleground, the place where this all starts, it's the university campus. This is where the global competition for tech leadership is really being fought, right in the lecture halls and research labs.
Think about it. For decades, if you were asked to name the world's best engineering schools, a certain list of names probably popped into your head, right? You know, the usual suspects in the US and Europe. They've pretty much been the gold standard for as long as anyone can remember.
Well, you might want to tear up that old list, because it's being rewritten, and fast. The whole traditional hierarchy is getting completely flipped on its head, and a brand new set of institutions is rising to the top.
And look, the numbers don't lie. According to the latest QS rankings, which are a pretty big deal in global university league tables, Chinese universities are absolutely storming the top tier for engineering and tech. Tsinghua University is now ranked 9th in the world, with Shejing and Shanghai Jiaotong both crashing into the top 30. This isn't some slow, gradual shift, folks. This is a seismic one.
So the big question is, how did this happen? How did they pull this off so quickly? Well, that brings us to our first section. We're going to dig into how China is strategically and very deliberately turning its higher education system into a global magnet for science and tech talent.
Their strategy is really smart. See, it's not just about building great schools. It's about filling them with the best and brightest from all over the planet. They're running these slick, coordinated digital marketing campaigns on platforms like WeChat and Douyin. They're handing out over 30,000 government scholarships every single year. And they're laser-targeting students from places like Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. It's a modern, aggressive playbook, and let me tell you, it is working.
Meanwhile, the picture over in the US is, well, it's a lot more complicated. Yeah, overall, international enrollment is up a little bit. But here's the kicker. A worrying 36% of colleges are reporting a drop in new students from China. And that's a huge deal. Why? Because many top US research universities really rely on the full tuition that these students pay to fund their operations and, their cutting-edge research.
But look, this isn't just about university rankings or tuition money. No, this is about something much, much bigger. This is about who gets the first-round picks in the global draft for AI talent. And that's what we're talking about next, why this shift in academia has massive implications for the future of all technology.
So why the aggressive push? Why is China going all in on this? It really comes down to one staggering number, 4 million. That is the projected shortfall of AI specialists that China thinks it will face by 2030. McKinsey figures the country's going to need about 6 million AI developers, but their own universities can only pump out about a third of them. That incredible domestic demand is what's fueling this global race for talent.
And to meet that demand, they're not just tweaking old courses, they're inventing completely new ones. China's Ministry of Education has basically ordered its top schools to launch a new major called Embodied Intelligence. Think about that name. It's this fusion of AI, robotics, and sensory perception, basically everything you need for self-driving cars and smart factories. They are literally designing degrees for the jobs of tomorrow today. And you know what? All this investment is already paying off in a huge way. Just take a look at the share of first-author AI research papers. That's a really key metric for who's leading innovation. Back in 2018, Chinese institutions were at 12%. Fast forward to 2023, and that figure has nearly doubled to 23%. They're not just training more engineers. They are producing more of the world's most important research.
All right, so let's really break this down. Let's put these strategies side by side. Because what we're looking at are two completely different playbooks being used by the US and China in this high-stakes race for AI supremacy.
First up, let's talk money, government funding. China has earmarked something like $140 billion for AI research, and it comes with very clear targets for getting universities and industry to work together. The U.S. response, the CHIPS and Science Act, is a big deal, don't get me wrong, but those funds are being funneled through universities that, as we just saw, are already feeling a financial pinch.
And the differences don't stop there. Look at how industry and schools collaborate. The U.S. mostly uses a grant-only model, which can sometimes create distance and slow things down with longer project cycles. China, on the other hand, is building what they call industry education integration basis. This means students are literally splitting their time between the campus lab and the corporate R&D units at giant companies like Huawei and Baidu. Talk about hands-on.
And when it comes to actually recruiting that global talent, the approaches could not be more different.
U.S. schools are often dealing with budget cuts and tighter visa policies, some serious headwinds. Meanwhile, China is running those sophisticated multilingual campaigns and just throwing scholarships at top candidates. One has its foot on the brake, the other has its foot slammed on the accelerator.
And then there's maybe the biggest point of all, the bottom line, the cost. A top-tier STEM degree in the United States will run you about $55,000 a year. In China, it's around $5,000. That's a 10x difference. That is an absolute game changer. It makes a world-class education suddenly accessible to a much, much wider pool of global talent.
So you add all this up, and what does it mean? What are the real-world consequences, especially for the United States? Let's explore what this all means for the race to define our future.
This quote really just hits the nail on the head. For U.S. research universities, a drop in international students isn't just some abstract number on a spreadsheet. It is lost revenue, cold hard cash. And this has already forced some schools to start cutting staff and putting important construction projects on hold. It directly hurts their ability to fund the very research that drives American innovation.
So what's the path forward? What's the comeback strategy? Well, the source material lays out a pretty clear four-part response for the U.S. Basically, it's about fighting fire with fire. First, rethink tuition and offer more scholarships for international STEM students to compete on cost. Second, build deeper partnerships with industry, co-fund labs, and create real pipelines to jobs. Third, get serious about modern digital recruitment to find that talent wherever it is in the world. And finally, push for more flexible visa policies so that when you find that talent, they can actually come and hopefully stay.
The global map of talent is literally being redrawn right before our eyes. And this competition between different national strategies, different university playbooks, it really leaves us with one huge central question. Who is going to attract, train, and ultimately deploy the minds that will build the intelligence of tomorrow?